About 28 years ago, this person astral projected to a triangular ship and communicated with a triangular headed being through the window. Was this Bashar's ship or something else?
Something else. We will not go into details at this time.
Okay. And what this person is saying, when they were younger, they had vivid dreams of their family house on fire and witnessing a UFO. These dreams are still very vivid, and in their research, they sense that they might be significant encounters. They're saying that they know they've been in contact with ETs, and they feel close to remembering, perhaps even Bashar himself, which is one reason they feel such a strong pull to join this transmission. Any insights you might provide that would be helpful in this situation?
This is indicative of communication with hybrid beings in the dream state, in the altered reality state. The house on fire represents the idea of what you're going through now in terms of breaking things down, burning things up, going from an old cycle to a new cycle, allowing the old systems to fall away, to burn away, and new systems to be put in place for your world and your reality to be refreshed and renewed. So the idea is that you are going through this transition. Sometimes it will be represented in a negative way, such as the burning of a house, but nevertheless, it is representative of a clearing, of a letting go of an old way, burning the old ideas out and allowing new ones to come in. So, the idea is of a clearing and a preparation and a laying a foundation for a new structure, a new reality to take place in which contact can occur more easily. That is the communication that was given symbolically.
Nice. This person is saying in LA, her son and she spotted two silent triangular shapes with distinct circles in each corner, flying in the night sky from their hot tub. A friend's photo of a similar craft later led me to Bashar, raising questions about the origins of what they saw.
Yes, well, hybrid ships. Again, there's a lot of traffic around your planet. When you expand your consciousness, especially in a relaxed state, such as you achieved in your hot tub, a meditative state, your senses can then become more keenly aware of things that are going on around you that might have been invisible to you before until you allowed your vibration to raise by being in a more meditative state, which then gave you the ability to see some of the traffic that is moving around your planet all the time, especially the hybrid ships, since they are very close to the vibration of open contact, since it is the hybrid children that will be coming to live among you.
Okay, and here's another one. This person says, I had a fascinating flying vehicle encounter in October of 2023 in New York City. It happened around 7 a.m. in Manhattan, near the 14th Street Union Square area. I was out grabbing a coffee before work when, upon crossing a street, I noticed out of the sheer corner of my eye an object flying rather unusually low in the open between the buildings. It appeared large, silent, at a distance. I noticed that it happened to be heading in the direction of my workplace right before it disappeared from view behind the buildings. A block away from my workplace, I decided to stop and see if I could get a good look at what it was. Well, lo and behold, I did, only this time it then hovered and stopped in the open space as if noticing me noticing it and stopping by to say hello. If what I perceived was in fact extraterrestrial, may you share with me who that pilot was that was piloting that ship and where they from and anything more you can tell me about that?
It is a Yael craft. They did notice that you were noticing them. Having the coffee is symbolic of waking up and they were basically recognizing that you were waking up enough to be able to perceive their ship, which was out of phase with your reality, and yet you saw it anyway. And so they noticed that. Their message, in a sense, was good morning. You are waking up.
This person is saying, I'm a science fiction fantasy author, and I'm always wondered if the worlds and characters that run around in my head are as real as I am, or are they only real as this reality? I have a hard time defining the world as an illusion because to me, illusions are fake and fake is meaningless or a lie. Would it be safe to view the world as more malleable and less fixed than we humans currently view our experience of it?
Yes. And again, you can have a different definition of the word illusion. It is not meant in the term to be fake. The idea is perhaps more auspiciously used as a projection of consciousness rather than illusion, if illusion doesn't work for you as a term. So a projection of consciousness can still create a virtual reality for you, and the meaning in it is what you put into it. The experience of it is real, and it gives you lessons, it gives you knowledge, it allows you to expand, it allows you to learn, it allows you to grow. So in that sense, the so-called quote-unquote illusion is useful as a tool, if you think of it that way, but perhaps it would be easier for you to use it in the term projection rather than illusion. The idea is that the imaginings are real in their own right to some degree in a variety of ways. It doesn't mean they have to be as concrete as you find your reality to be, but many of them may be, or they may be very close representations of a quote-unquote real solid physical reality. They may be slightly different than you imagine them to be, but they could be close. Nevertheless, everything is real in some context, even if it's only real as a story. It's still real in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not literally played out physically in some parallel version of reality.
So maybe one of the ways to relate to this is the idea that since it's a projection of consciousness, it's more malleable
Yes,
and it has more plasticity than we were originally taught.
yes,
And similarly, whatever you experience is relevant to what you need to experience. So it, in a way, it doesn't matter if it's quote unquote real or not. Like,
yes,
for example, they found that if a person observes another person being hurt in a way that is designed to make the person think it's happening to them, their subconscious cannot distinguish between what is really happening to them and what they are just simply observing.
yes, but you are choosing a very complex psychological example that is beyond what this person was intending. The idea is to look at it more from the science fiction point of view. For example, in your Star Trek, you have the character known as Mr. Spock. As we have discovered, we have never found yet the idea that beings that look exactly like them, what you call the Vulcans, physically exist, but the representation of Mr. Spock is that he is a hybrid. Hybrids exist. The idea of what you call the non-interference directive, the prime directive in Star Trek, where certain civilizations that have not evolved to a certain point are allowed to evolve to that point before they are contacted, that is an actual thing that exists in many civilizations, including ours. So the idea is that there can be a mix of things that do have concrete reality to them, physically speaking. There can be some things that are real in the sense that they are symbolic representations of other concrete realities, though the representation itself may not be literal. And there are some things that are simply literal as stories. And that doesn't make them any less real because they are real stories. But they're not necessarily concretely, literally real in the physical sense that you understand physical reality experiences to be. But anything you can imagine in some context is real, because you cannot imagine non-existence. You just have to be able to discern the context of the thing that you're talking about to know the difference between something that exists as an actual concrete physical reality and something that exists as an idea that's still real as an idea, but is not necessarily concretely literal. Although I have to add the caveat that in spirit, anything you imagine can be created, literally exactly experienced as if it is physically concretely real. So you can, in spirit, conjure up Mr. Spock, literally. And a being can take that form for you and represent it for you, and you can interact with it as if you are interacting with a literal being that is known as Mr. Spock. But that's taking place in an extremely malleable reality such as spirit, where anything you can imagine can be manifest out of spirit material, so to speak. But it is not literally physically concrete in the way that you're experiencing physical reality now. But it will be as real as you imagine it to be, and will be the product of another kind of level of consciousness interacting with you. And in that context, just as real as anything, because the interaction and the experience will be real.
It's fascinating.
Yes.
And this person is saying they would like clarification on these two seemingly opposing ideas. One is that everything is a reflection of ourselves. And two, I hear you say sometimes to not take people's reflections personally because it has nothing to do with you. And it's just a part of their own journey. Can you clarify that?
Yes. Remember that you are experiencing your version of other beings. It doesn't mean they're not real. It's just that you're creating your simulational representational image of them and interacting with that. So what you are interacting with is your creation, but that doesn't mean you've created the actual being, the actual consciousness. The consciousness is real, and you're interacting with a real consciousness, but you're interacting through the filter that you're capable of manifesting that is the best representation of them that you manifest out of your own consciousness, out of your own energy, as an interface, so to speak. The idea of the second part of the question, read that again.
The idea that if someone the second person says something like your socks are orange and you know your socks are not orange.
Yes.
So you don't take it personally because you know it has nothing to do with you and it's part of their journey.
All right, well, this is about discernment, because the idea is that you can always listen to what someone has to say and decide for yourself whether or not their advice is something that you do need to apply. And that's why they have been attracted into your reality, because there is a lesson there for you. There is information there that would benefit you if you applied it in your life. But you also get to discern whether or not that's true. And therefore you can, if you are honest within your own self-investigation, know the difference between whether or not somebody that's been attracted into your life and says certain things to you is actually having information that would benefit you, or whether you simply have attracted them to be of benefit to them in some way, shape, or form, by understanding that what they're saying to you is not your issue, but theirs, that you could perhaps help them with by giving them another alternative way to look at what it is they are going through. So they're still in your life because you attracted them, but you may have attracted them to be of assistance to them in changing the way they're looking at things, rather than them having information that would benefit you. But you have to give yourself the opportunity to decide which it is. You have to have honest self-recognition and self-awareness and self-discernment as to whether the information is for you or for them, or maybe both.
Okay, and this question is about assisting those in despair. How would you help someone who says that he or she wants to die? This person says they work every day with people who have lost their illusion in life.
All right. We're going to keep this very simple. Tell them to lie down on the floor or on the bed, close their eyes, and say they are ready to leave, and have them count to 10. If they can still open their eyes when they get to 10, they're not ready to leave. They are here by choice. And if they truly were done with their lives, they would have left. They would have died in that moment. That's all it takes. You don't have to have any other kind of assistance if you're really at your timing to leave. So if they can still count to 10 and open their eyes, that's their first clue that they're not ready to leave. They have not finished what they came to do. So that's an easy way to tell whether you're ready to go, whether you're really ready to die, whether you're really ready to wake back up in spirit, or whether you feel you still have something to do in physical reality that can then give them the sense of looking for what that is, finding their passions, finding their interests, not being so hard on themselves, not judging themselves so harshly, so negatively. Stop treating themselves so badly and start waking up to the fact that they are aspects of all that is, that they are beautiful, that they are creative, that they are loving and loved, they are supported unconditionally, and what they say goes. So if they want to buy into all sorts of negativity, the unconditional nature of existence will support them in that negativity because it is unconditional. And you can teach them that since it is unconditional, so unconditional that it is even willing to support them in their negativity, there is no reason it wouldn't support them in their positivity as well. And they can decide to choose more positive ways of looking at things, more positive definitions, and those will be supported just as strongly by existence as the negative ideas they held to be true were supported as well. It's up to them, but first and foremost, you can show them that they're not ready to leave, because if they really were at the end of their lives, it would be as simple as lying down, saying you're ready to go, counting to 10, and you'd be gone.
Fascinating. Can you comment on, I know people sometimes are concerned about how they're going to die. And then there seem to be some people who are lucky enough to just pass away in their sleep.
Why is that lucky?
Yeah. Okay. So can you explain that
Remember,
more?
it's all about choice, and it's all about a learning experience, and it's all about what you believe to be true. So regardless of how the death occurs, it's going to be the result of something you believe to be true. It doesn't mean that you necessarily would have preferred it that way, but remember that once you have died and the soul is looking back on the experience, it will have the realization of why it occurred that way because of the belief systems of the physical part of its being, and therefore it will learn a lesson from that, that it didn't necessarily have to choose that, or that it did choose it for very specific reasons that may have more to do with others around it than itself. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
So does that also mean that people who are like reaching the age where death could potentially happen, and they decide they want to program themselves that whenever their timing is, that it would be in a certain way that wouldn't be painful or something like
Possibly,
that?
possibly. Again, it depends on how deep they dig into their belief system, how they're willing to learn the lessons they chose to learn, the challenges they chose to face in this life in a different way. They have the option of doing it that way, but that implies that they've learned something about their ability to create their reality. And that may be the whole point.
Okay. And so people who have a lot of fear of death, there seems to be two parts to it. One of them is the idea that actually, this is coming from the near-death experiences. People have this wide variety of experiences, but it's all really based on their belief systems, right?
At first, yes. But again, initially, when the belief system manifests when they are non-physical, they still get the opportunity to decide whether or not they prefer to continue to experience that or change it. And again, in non-physical reality, if they decide to change it, the change will happen instantly with no time lag. So they will learn immediately that it was the product of their belief system as to what they experienced upon the moment of their death.
And yet, a lot of people, when they come back from a near death experience, they don't seem to understand that. They're just convinced that the way that they experienced it is the way that it happens, or something, or that it validates what they believe about reality.
Again, this may be true for some people, but many more people are beginning to learn the malleability of the experience in the near death experience, what is common and what is not, and what is personal and what is general. They are beginning to learn. Again, like anything, you need to have a large amount of data to sift through to understand where the personal aspects are and where the collective aspects are that are common to most.
Well, it's very helpful that we're starting to understand more about death and get over our fear of it.
Yes, it is very helpful because, as we said, a lot of beings you may encounter in open contact will be of a vibration that would be similar to the idea of spirit. And if your physical mind can't come to terms with that vibration and lose the fear, then your body may react to these beings as if you are dying, being exposed to their energy. And that is what causes the fear and survival mode reaction within many people.
So that's very helpful.
Yes.
Um, Now, this person is talking about having an obsession with money. And they say that sometimes they get obsessed with the idea of money and focusing on getting more. This preoccupation creates confusion about their true passion,
All
which
right,
is also
stop. We are going to once again remind you that we have addressed this by expanding your definitions of abundance and not focusing only on money as the only symbolic representation you have of exchange and abundance and support on your planet. We will simply refer this person to what we have already said about it, and we will move on from here.
okay. And this person is talking about they were following their excitement at the end of last year and went on a sabbatical trip to Thailand and Bali for 3 months. They tried to cut out contact with the old reality as much as they could by following their excitement, which led them to an amazing journey of self discovery and multidimensional exploration. Now they're back in their hometown and they're faced with the elements of the old reality that still trigger them.
Then they're still reacting the same way, and they have not brought the Bali experience home with them. They have not stayed in that vibration for their own reasons. They need to examine their belief systems to find out what difference they are making between the Bali experience and their hometown that allows them to still react the same old way that they used to, instead of being transformed by the Bali experience and the vibration they were in there and bringing that vibration back to the circumstances in their hometown. Remember, it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that makes the difference in your reality. So why react the same old way just because things in the hometown look the same? Remember, the measure of change is not whether the outside has changed, it's how you react and respond differently even if the outside still looks the same. That is all we will say about that at this point.
Okay. And this person is asking, how can I fully let go? How can I be my full self, truly embracing my perfect puzzle piece and frequency?
Understand clearly and act upon precisely the formula. Period.
So helpful, actually. This person is saying they've been on this spiritual journey for some time, but they feel they've stagnated. They don't feel or receive messages from their higher self or anything.
Nonsense. Look to the synchronicity in your life. Don't define having to receive those messages in a certain way. Don't insist on a certain method of delivery. Synchronicity is everything in physical reality. Start looking at the interconnections and associations that exist in everything in your physical reality, and you will start to see synchronicity more clearly as messages from your higher mind. And remember that the primary message from your higher mind are those things that you are passionate about, because that's how your body interprets the messages from the higher mind, is as the sensation of excitement, passion, creativity, and love. So look to the synchronicities. They abound. They're all around you. Everything is an orchestration. Everything is a synchronicity. Just change your definition of what's going on around you and you'll see it more clearly.
Okay, thank you. This person is saying that a good friend of theirs died a few years ago, and sometimes when they're alone and in a quiet space, they like to talk to that person as if they're actually right there in front of them. Does he hear what I'm saying, and how can I know? Because I miss him so terribly.
Just know that he does, because it's easier for spirits to hear you than it is for you to hear the spirits. Remember, the idea is that they are now unbounded from time and space, and therefore, talking to them, they get it, and they can be there with you. So you just have to open up to the understanding that they are, and you will begin to perceive them. But again, you have to raise your vibration to be more sensitive to the fact that they exist. You have to be open to receiving their communications without a definition that you have lost something. Otherwise, you will only perceive the connections they may be attempting to make to you as grief, and the grief will block them from being able to deliver those informational messages to you and block you from receiving it. So you have to let go of the idea that you've lost someone. You have to let go of the grief eventually so that you can be more open to receiving the messages that they have for you, and simply know that they will hear you when you talk to them in earnest from your heart. This will be the culmination of the questions for today.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much. And
We will now remind all of you about the upcoming transmission for the Interstellar Alliance Social Experiment, Step 1, that will be delivered next time. For we now have given you the ability to prepare for things that will be suggested, that are actions you can take, that are behaviors you can change individually and in society. Again, we remind you, you do not have to do the things we will suggest in this social experiment, but that if you do, your vibration will become more compatibly aligned with the vibration of the Interstellar Alliance and open contact. So it is up to you to decide what you prefer. So, next time we will deliver Step 1 of the Interstellar Alliance social experiment in this Countdown to Contact Year 1. Be prepared if you are going to participate. Be open, be willing, be creative, imaginative, be loving to yourselves and all. Be connected, be aware, be awake. Our unconditional love to you all, and good day.
um, is there only one non-physical source we call spirit or God? Or is there really many parts that make this an idea of one whole? I'd like to know if there is a God and what I have been chasing my whole life on earth.
You are separating the idea into this or that instead of this and that. There is one and there is all, and the one and the all are the same thing in different forms. There is one that becomes the all, that is the all, that experiences itself as the all, and there are the many things that together make up the one, but are each individually their own version, their own perspective of the one. Everything is made of God. There is nothing else to make anything from, and therefore God is everything. When people on your planet talk about the idea and the notion of God being omnipresent, you have to understand that it's not possible to be everywhere unless you're actually literally everything. Therefore, it is everything. It is every atom, every subatomic particle, every object, every molecule, everything. The space even in between the things that you think of as empty space, that is even made of God. There is nowhere where God, all that is, isn't. It is everything, it is everyone, it is everywhere, it is everywhen. All the things make it up, and it makes up all the things.
After one becomes enlightened, is there any steps along one's path of spiritual development, or is this awakening the last step?
Enlightenment never ends. There are always different levels to awareness and enlightenment and experiences of all that is. Even if someone imagines that they reach the so-called quote unquote highest level of becoming one with all that is, becoming one with Source, there are still many versions of what it means to experience becoming one with Source. So even becoming one with Source is not the ending of enlightenment or awareness. It is infinite, goes on forever, never ends, there's always something else.
Okay, and can you please give examples of the idea of the illusion of power versus the power of the illusion? I would like to understand this concept better.
Many people on your planet fall under the illusion of power in the sense of thinking that their physical minds need to control things. They think of themselves as powerful when they find themselves able to manipulate certain events into a certain order that allows them to feel satisfied with what it is they insist on seeking. But the idea is to understand that physical reality is a projection of consciousness. In that context, an illusion doesn't mean it's not valid. It doesn't mean the experience is not real. But understanding that you are already creating your reality based on your belief systems, based on what you define as true for you, is being able to utilize the power of the illusion to your benefit by going with the flow, by not being in resistance, by not attempting to force things into shape, but by understanding how to allow them to automatically fall into place using your own natural current, your own natural control built into you, rather than attempting to artificially control things through the physical mind, which it's not designed to do. It is only designed to give you an experience of physical reality, not to control it. The idea is that the control is already built in to the choices that you made to experience, the challenges that you chose to experience in this lifetime to grow as a soul. So allowing the idea of the agreements you made to simply unfold in perfect timing and to respond to them in a positive way, acting on your passion, following the formula, going with the flow, not resisting the natural current that you are, is the way to use the power of the illusion that's already built into it, instead of falling under the illusion that you are powerful by exercising your physical mind to control everything, which is exactly the opposite of being in control.
And if we all have unique experiences of life on Earth, do we all see the same objects and colors in the same non-biased way? Do you, Bashar, see our Earth and objects' colors the same way we do? Or do you see everything as energy or some other state?
You may have a strong sense of agreement so that what you perceive in your reality is very, very similar to what someone else may be perceiving in their reality, and therefore have a common ground in a sense. But the idea is that you do not perceive exactly, precisely the same thing as everyone else. You all have a unique perspective. We see things also very differently than you do. We see multidimensionally far more than you do at this point in your evolution. And therefore we see energy patterns. We can recognize those energy patterns as a type of language that allows us to understand how to perceive you and other beings in a very different way, on many different levels, simultaneously, even into the idea of perceiving parallel reality aspects of your being that you are connecting to, other civilizational vibrations that you are connecting to, other dimensional expressions of your greater being and your oversoul. So yes, we see you as much bigger than you see yourselves in a variety of ways and extending into a variety of dimensional realities.
And when we use our imagination to interact with our hybrid children, what type of connection is actually happening? When this person is saying, when they play out the scenarios in their head, do they know that the hybrid children know they're doing this and come around? Can you explain this process a little more, because it's not tangible in their reality?
The hybrid children are extremely telepathic, will often pick up on when you are thinking of them, will allow their imagination to vibrationally match the imaginary scenarios that you are picturing in your head. For those that are vibrationally compatible with the realities that benefit them, they will experience what you are imagining. For those that are not necessarily relevant to them, they will not necessarily experience those portions of your imagination. They may send back a representation of what it is that would be more likely represented by them. They can reverse the telepathy in that sense and allow you, especially in dream time, to have a more representative imagination scenario that is more in alignment with their vibration. So that can work in both directions.
And you stated in a session that new children on Earth are coming through upgraded in a way that they will be able to remember the connection much faster.
Yes.
Please tell me the age range of these particular upgraded children.
Generally speaking, most of them are in their 20s at this point, although new ones are being born all the time, and therefore there's a large age range below 20 years of age. It doesn't mean that anyone over 20 isn't also hybridized in the new way, part of a new species. But the overall average age is somewhere in the 20s of those that have been hybridized to the point where they are a relatively new species. That doesn't mean that they're all in alignment. It simply means they all have different capacities than you used to have as a species. It still depends on what they choose to do with it. It still depends upon the themes that they chose to explore as to what they are capable of recognizing within themselves, but they do have a slight advantage of being capable of remembering more of who they are as a spirit connected to Source. How they interpret it will be based on the themes they chose to explore.
And could you clarify how it is that the Sasani are one of the products of the hybridization agenda, but their physical future selves seem to also be participating in it, such as yourself? I am curious if the version of the hybridization agenda that you perceive as the origin of your society is the same as the one that you're participating in. For example, you perceive your physical self as being physically involved in the creation of your own society. Are there versions of it that were created without the involvement of physical future selves? In a similar fashion, does Willa perceive that Daryl has channeled her in the past of her timeline, which will mean the information of the 5 levels of mastery was being used on Earth before they even invented it?
You are confused by the science fiction convention of future and past and time travel. The idea is to understand us not so much literally as future selves, but as parallel reality interpretations, parallel reality counterparts that all exist simultaneously with your reality. So yes, we are involved, but literally speaking, we are not coming from what you would consider to be your future in a linear sense. We coexist with you right now. So the idea is to drop the notion that we're in your future, because that's not how it works. The idea of the utilization of the term future selves is simply an application to represent that we are very much more advanced than you, which you usually chalk up to the idea of a future evolutionary being. But we exist right now. So the idea is we coexist with you and are participating with you. We are not coming from the literal future in the science fiction sense.
And also, the idea that the third entity is created when Daryl channels you or
Yes.
channels Bashar. And does that being have its own individuated soul?
Of a type, yes. We will not go into detail on this at this time because it can get a little complex. But of a type, yes.
Okay, and could you clarify the differences between the grays that you're referring to and the zeta reticuli?
As we have mentioned from time to time, there are many factions of grays. And the reason for this primarily is that when we talked about the idea of grays coming from a parallel version of Earth and other parallel realities, you must understand that there are a multitude of grays from different parallel realities that come through to different versions of Earth. So you have a mix of grays, in a sense, that come from different origin points, all interacting to some degree in what you consider to be your reality. So the grays that are connected to Zeta Reticuli are not exactly the same grays that are involved primarily in our creation, in the idea of the hybridization agenda. So it gets a little bit confusing because some can cross over from one agenda to another from time to time. But there are many factions of grays that come from many different parallel realities, all coexisting simultaneously in what you consider to be your timeline.
Okay, and is it accurate to say that extrasolar intelligent beings cannot develop the technology to reach Earth unless they have transcended aggressive world domination agendas and other fear-based and greed-based motivations? Does this imply that regardless of the circumstances on Earth, when they arrive, these beings will be altruistic ETs?
For the most part, yes. And again, remember that those that are engaged with you will set up a vibration that would make it less likely that anything that is vibrationally incompatible with your best interests would simply not find you. You would be invisible to them because of the vibrational state of those engaged with you that are operating on a much higher frequency.
Okay, and could you please explain the game Hexes written about in the book Shards of the Shattered Mirror by
Yes,
Daryl?
there is a playing field made of different hexes. You might call them electronically activated. And the idea is that the players standing on hexes have to, in some way, psychically or telepathically or synchronistically determine the pattern of the changes in the colors of the hexes that change from phase to phase, from moment to moment, so that when you move from one hex to another, you instinctively land on a color that moves you forward and benefits you, as opposed to eliminating you from the game. So, for example, if you move from one hex to another while all the hexes are shifting and changing in color, when the hexes stop changing, stop shifting, and solidify into a particular color that was different than what they were before, or similar to what they were before, whatever color it is that you have now stood on, whatever color happens to be in the hex you have decided to go to, determines your status in the game. So if you perhaps, for example, move to a hex that winds up solidifying into a gold hex, you may have won the game. If you stand on a hex that happens to solidify into a black hex, you may be eliminated from the game. Other colors may represent different status points in the game.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Um, are those who are attracted to your teachings a participant in the hybridization agenda?
They don't all have to be, but about 90% or above usually are.
Okay. And it seems as more of our consciousness expands, more is revealed. Does this mean that as a collective consciousness, if we match your frequency, we will be able to see you in physical form, or will we continue seeing only via our third eye?
You will ultimately see us in physical form if your vibrational rate comes closer to matching our frequency. In some sense, that is really what contact is all about. Because as we have said, those operating on a higher frequency have the qualities of spirit. And when exposed to those frequencies, your physical body may react to them as if you are dying. And that is where the fear comes from. But the idea is that as you raise your frequency and create less differentiation between physical and non-physical reality, you become more vibrationally compatible with our natural state and can allow your senses to begin to perceive us more solidly, more corporeally, more physically.
And this person asks, saying that they 2 days ago meditated and asked to travel with a UFO, and then read in the media the day after that a UFO was observed in the same area of Norway.
Yes.
Is there any link?
Yes. That was the UFO that that person visited. Whether they remember fully or not is not the point. But they were given an opportunity to understand through the media story that what they had asked for had actually occurred. In time, they may remember. The memories may unfold.
Hello, Bashar, and thank you for everything you have offered us. I so appreciate you. I would like some clarification on balancing points 3 and 4 of the formula. Point 3, acting on my excitement without any insistence, assumption, or expectation of what the outcome should be, and staying in a positive state of mind. So my clarification is I get how I should let go and allow things to unfold and trust that the abundance that I'm seeking in this specific example can come from many different ways. But I'm not sure how I can stay in a positive state of mind without some belief that it is going to work, that I am going to have my needs met. So, how can I both have no insistence that it's going to work and yet stay in a positive state of mind? Can you expand on that for me?
Yes. First of all, understand that by letting go of insistence, that is a way for opening up to receive what you truly need. Because insisting on things may actually close the door to receiving what you truly need. Because your insistence may be saying, I know what is best, I know what I need, and maybe you don't. So the idea is to drop the insistence, because insistence limits your ability to actually receive what you need. I will remind you of the 7 basic needs of life. You need air, you need water, you need sleep, you need food, you need some form of shelter or positive constructive environment that allows you to thrive. You need the idea of connection or relationship with something, whether it's a person or not. And you need the idea of self-creative expression, the idea of acting on your passion. If you say you have needs that go beyond those, then they are not needs, they are insistences on something that may not be what you need, but may only be representative of what your ego system wants. And it may not be aligned with what you truly need. If you receive the 7 things we just outlined that are the true needs in life, your life will be fulfilled. So you have to pay attention to whether the idea of what you say are your needs are actually really wants, or are they truly aligned with the 7 needs we just outlined. The idea of staying in a positive state is, again, your ability to experience whatever happens in a more constructive, beneficial way. Why would you want to stay in a negative state and experience things in a negative way, in a destructive way, in a way that doesn't serve you positively? Staying in a positive state is allowing you to interpret any experience and glean from that experience and extract from that experience something that will move you forward in a positive direction, that will allow you to feel more connected, more self-empowered. So the question is, why wouldn't you choose to stay in a positive state no matter what happens, knowing that if you do stay in that positive state, you'll be able to get a benefit out of whatever's going on? Even if you recognize that what manifested is something you don't prefer, that's just an objective observation. Staying in a positive state will allow you to understand how that manifestation can still serve you in a positive way by being there, instead of succumbing to the negative state that will only make it impossible for you to realize how that manifestation could serve you in a positive way. So it's up to you to decide what you actually prefer to experience, and know that you're making a choice to be in a state of being that will allow you to experience them in the way that you prefer, as opposed to experiencing things in the way that you don't prefer. So it's just simply a choice you make based on how you would like to experience things. And by understanding what your true basic needs are, and not calling things that are egotistical wants things that you actually think you need, when in fact you may not.
Hey, Bashar.
Good day.
Uh, Hi, I am so excited by this. I really thank you for this.
It is our passion and our pleasure. What would you like to discuss?
Well, my personal growth is really important to me. I've known that since I was a little kid. Um, and it led me to you and the uh, excuse me, I'm senior moment. Um,
The
uh,
formula?
the formula, thank you, thank you. Yes, and I've taken to the formula, and I have a really good understanding of it. And it's also I have the law of attraction information as well.
Yes, well, the law of
Um,
attraction, in a sense, is built into the formula as well. Because again, what you put out is what you get back.
yes, I have discovered that my life has taken a terrific change. I'm basically happy all the time thanks
All
to
right.
this.
Yes.
Um,
We are
and
basically happy all the time as well.
I like to hear that. Yes. Um, I guess my question I have, is there anything there that I may not be aware of that maybe I don't know. I don't actually know, but I'm just
If you
wondering if
say
I'm
that you are happy all the time, why would you assume that there is something else you need to know? And why wouldn't you understand the formula enough to know that if there is something there, the reflective mirror component of it will bring it to your attention in the appropriate time?
I actually agree with you on that. I guess sometimes I get so excited that I forget where my passion takes me. But I do follow my passion. Like you, I'm an artist, so I do know what it's like to allow my creativity and my imagination
All
sometimes
right.
get the better of me. But yes,
All right. Well, as long as you always course correct, as long as you're always aware to check yourself, you'll be fine.
thank you, thank you. Uh, The only other question I have at this time, it just dawned on me that like the work you're doing to with First Contact, I was really happy to hear what the announcement you made about the next coming year. My question is like what do we on this planet at this time, what do we offer in this exchange?
Many different things, many different perspectives, ways of experiencing life, ways of expressing your creativity that are different from ours. It enhances and builds and adds to our understanding of all the different ways that all that is has of expressing itself. Plus, again, the idea is that in the suggestions that we will deliver in the upcoming transmissions, we will see how you use your creativity to perform these acts for all those who are willing to follow these suggestions, take the actions, and increase their vibrational frequency to be that more aligned with the interstellar alliance. You will come at it from a unique point of view.
I like that. Uh, I listen to a lot of information for, like near-death experiences. I like to give an understanding of what's waiting for us on the other side when we go back to where we came from.
Yes, but
Um,
remember that you are already there.
yes, I am quite aware of that.
All right.
Uh, I'm working on my relationship with my inner being and source, uh, building on that relationship. But I do understand that I come from the perspective of an illusion and
Yes.
going back to something real. Uh, and I actually do enjoy that fact. I'm looking
Yes.
forward to that.
Yes, it doesn't diminish the effect of the illusion because the illusion has its purpose, allowing you experiences that cannot be had purely in spirit, and thus it expands you and allows you to grow. So just by understanding it as an illusion does not in any way, shape, or form discount the experience as important.
I, I've discovered how important our experience here is to uh, where source is. Uh,
Yes,
yes. Um, I also came to the conclusion that we are basically energy that
yes.
has consciousness,
Well, yes, consciousness is energy. Energy is consciousness. Existence
right?
is conscious.
Well, I got to say, Bashar, I really do appreciate this. I don't actually have any other questions, but I'm grateful to having this time with you.
As are we. We thank you for the co-creation of the interaction, and again, bid you an exciting path and journey. Aveo.
Aveo.